Jade Cargill is back for her third WrestleMania tour, this time as world champion. But WWE's Black Renaissance has also highlighted one of pro wrestling's ugliest issues, particularly when it comes to media coverage of black women. And that's honky behavior. The internet wrestling crackerverse is always finding new and exciting ways to paint black women as the villain. But that trick just isn't as effective in 2026. Black Twitter has Jade Cargill's whole back more than ever, and every dog-whistling narrative against Cargill is blown asunder. No, Jade isn't too big for her britches. She isn't difficult to deal with or a pain in the ass. Jade Cargill knows her worth and isn't here to play this old boys network game of paying dues and kissing feet. All these time-honored, unwritten rules only benefit the whitest of pro wrestlers. Them crackers need these politics to keep their spot, since they were and always have been athletically and culturally inferior to their black peers. The Trick Williams, Obafemis, Javon Evans, and Jade Cargills of the world are here to turn these little Yakubian backstage games into spades or dice. No business is quicker to weaponize confidence against black wrestlers than white wrestling, but those days have been over. You want uncontested white excellence? Go to AEW. Today, we're going to talk about pro wrestling's history of demonizing black women and why the Dirtsheet media's latest attempt to do the same to Jade Cargill blew up in their dirty little white powdered faces. Subscribe and patois. Pro wrestling media is to denigrating black women what American voting laws are to denigrating black women. It almost makes too much sense given the IWC's default setting of a wrinkled, rubber-faced dirt sheet writer. Their faces are about as interchangeable as their takes. If you've heard one dirt sheet call a queen out by her name, you've heard them all do it. If you use these dirt sheets for a game of black girl bingo with terms like stepping out of line and bad attitude, basically everybody's winning money. This was the case with Big Swole, who became the poster girl for Tony Khan's fumbles with booking black talent. At the time, AEW had come under fire for being so goddamn white. Of course, I started this gangsta shit, but when I call out a pro wrestler for being too white, it has nothing to do with equity or fairness. Yes, I'm pro-black, so I have a clear and obvious bias, and I stand on it. But black culture has always been cooler and more effective in entertainment than white culture. Because outside of killing colored people for their resources, there really is no such thing as white culture. Whenever white people want to create a star or tell a compelling story in wrestling, more times than not, they look to our culture and steal from it. John Cena as a rapper, Hollywood Hogan and the NWO, the list goes on and on and on. So when I push for black people to be on TV, it's because it's what's best for business. Why have culturally clueless Caucasians do what black people can do so much better? For almost the first 500 days of NXT on CW, every world champion was a black man, from Trick Williams to Obafemi to Ricky Saints. Guess what? NXT on CW was unstoppable against AEW Dynamite, which whooped the much whiter version of NXT during the Wednesday Night War. NXT on the CW's ratings beat AEW Dynamite almost every single week during the African NXT era, dating back to October of 2024. Now that Joe Hendry is champion, suddenly AEW Dynamite has beaten NXT in back-to-back weeks as of March 4th. Black has always been better, but when black excellence takes over its precious white institutions, no country is quicker to go from the Obamas to the Epstein guy than America. It's why Tony Khan posted this tweet about Big Swole that haunts him to this day. Because of it, AEW was forced to reckon with their racial blind spots, and to their credit, they have improved in their booking of black women, and even Swerve Strickland got a token title run that one time. But it isn't just AEW talking crazy about black women. One of AEW's biggest free agent signings was when Mercedes Moné was vultured from WWE after she walked out of the company due to creative differences. In 2022, both Sasha Banks and Naomi dropped their tag team titles and left in the middle of a Raw taping, prompting a knee-jerk reaction from Vince McMahon's WWE. Sasha and Naomi were painted as insubordinate villains who summarily and unprofessionally walked out. By going public with their disdain for Sasha and Naomi's actions, Vince McMahon signal boosted the copycat wrestling media to spread propaganda of these girls not doing as they're told. But this was a new era of WWE. Even in 2022, where Sasha and Naomi had helped develop a core black fan base that saw right through all this dirt sheet dog whistling. Sasha and Naomi's walkout was really toned down to they didn't want to face each other as tag champs, when we all know there was much more to it. Unreal my ass. So let me get this straight. This woman was a liability to others backstage and was involved in several negative incidents, yet Naomi and Sasha walking away quietly was reported on live TV, and Vince did everything he could to get them blackballed? Big facts. WWE didn't even hesitate when it came time to tearing down Sasha and Naomi. Brock Lesnar is liable to walk out of a Raw taping over bad lighting. You're gonna villainize Sasha and Naomi for standing on business over disrespect? Now it all makes sense. I see now why Brock is able to walk out whenever he wants, throws fits backstage, and even his championship belt at Vince with no repercussions, but Sasha and Naomi walked out and was called unprofessional on live television. The wrestling business has a long history of rewarding people who bet on themselves, and both Sasha and Naomi are in a better place today than they were when they walked out in 2022. Mercedes Moné became a record-breaking 13-time concurrent champion. In 2025, Naomi won Money in the Bank, became a world champion, and after proving them crackers wrong, at the height of her push, she went to go have a baby right quick, and she'll be back on top whenever she's ready. The future of men's wrestling is very black, but the same can be said for the present and future of women's wrestling in WWE. Last year, Bianca Belair was in the world title picture during WrestleMania season, just like she was the 4 years before that. After Rhea Ripley lost her world championship to Io Sky clean as a whistle, this set up Io Sky versus Bianca Belair for WrestleMania 41. But that didn't work for Rhea Ripley, brother. Despite losing fair and square, Terry Ripley forced her way into the world title match as part of a three-way, and fans supported this. The sore loser Rhea was cheered and Bianca was booed. You can check it all out in this video. Despite Bianca earning her spot, again, fair and square, Rhea had the complexion for the protection. Bianca is currently working her way back from a finger injury, but that hasn't stopped Rhea from coming face-to-face with another Black Girl challenge in the form of Jade Cargill. This year, Rhea actually earned her spot in a world title match and her 7th straight title match at WrestleMania. When this was brought up on Twitter, it led to a biblical Twitter spat that became the talk of WWE coming out of the Elimination Chamber. Jade dismissed Rhea as a second choice and even mocked Mommy for spending hours talking to creative. Fans and media ran with this feud, and whether or not it was real, the very idea that it was even being questioned as a possible shoot means this feud is money. When people are convinced that two wrestlers legit hate each other, 10 times out of 10 it helps interest in the feud, because personal issues draw money. Slow adult Dave Meltzer, still bitter about Jade leaving AEW in the dust and leveling up to legit world title status, immediately worked to smear Jade Cargill, talking about, put it this way, people, put it this way, people tell me I've been told by wrestlers who, put it this way, I've been told by wrestlers who dress up like security guards, that Jade Cargill has a bad attitude. I like Mike Johnson and everything, but if you even read his report on Jade and Rhea's conflict, he wasted no time morphing into an anti-Jade talking head like a middle-aged Megazord. It had more anti-black woman tropes than a Charlie Kirk YouTube short. From Jade, quote, rubbing people the wrong way, to people having a problem with how Jade conducts herself. Even Shannon Sharp on the Nightcap podcast responded to PW Insider's cracker rhetoric by saying, "Yep, you know what this is code for?" Just like when the wrestling media colonizers tried to drag Sasha and Naomi through the mud only to be drowned out, this cracker narrative didn't stand a chance against Jade. Every black person knows the wrestling community is full of white racists. Amen. If Jade Cargill was white like Rhea, she would skyrocket to the top. White people think all black wrestlers should be heels. Y'all want to paint her as a villain so bad, but if it were someone else, it would be heel work. Look at the picture they used in the narrative they're pushing. American women's wrestling is built on blonde bombshells. Sunny, Sable, Trish Stratus, Toni Storm, Charlotte Flair, Tiffany Stratton. This Lily tradition has and will continue, and as long as they're talented and dedicated, I have no problem with that. But black women are up right now, and that's a problem for the IWC, who is used to seeing white and Japanese women on top. Jade Cargill is walking into WrestleMania with a world title, and we're one finger injury and an Uso sperm away from Naomi, Jade, and Bianca all competing for a world title, possibly in the same match. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Whenever black people take over a traditionally white establishment, the white power structure works harder to tear it down than they ever will to embrace or support it. The colonizer mentality isn't about giving and working together. It's about taking and exclusivity. There will always be a contingent of crackery wrestling media types desperate to see black women fail if they get too over. But that old boys prototype is quickly going extinct. The cold and soulless archetype of dirt sheet media is being replaced by the even colder and more soulless AI. More zero-click searches means less need for dirt sheets, thank God. Similar to rainforests disappearing due to human activity, dirt sheets are disappearing due to honky activity, and you'd love to see it. To find out more about the deep-rooted history of racism in the pro wrestling business, all while revisiting the glory days of the White Boy Challenge, check out this goated Teddy Long documentary.